quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to respect the nurturing power within all of us. Thus do we covenant. It certainly shows a good service and prayerful community. Thank you. Let us take a moment and hear from our treasurer, Jim Breeden, please.
That's an impressive display of devotion that this church puts on. I'm here to talk a little bit about the pledge drive. And I think that, again, in the spirit of recognition, I wanted to, first of all, thank Mary Alice LaPointe. Mary Alice, are you here today? Deb Merrick and Alex McCallum, who've been serving as our pledge drive committee for this particular fund year, and it's very important. We owe them a debt of gratitude for their efforts. I think it's a very, very important function. Many of you who read the e-fuse saw where we are so far in our pledge drive. We're not actually closing the pledge drive yet. We've raised $195,000 from 119 pledging households. And in looking backwards over time, this is not an unusual place to be historically. It's good that I have a gray beard because I've been involved in finance for the last 8 years. It was perfectly black 8 years ago. Now it's no longer that. But over those 8 years, we've asked at this time of the year or later for a supplemental pledge drive or additional fundraising 7 of the last 8 years that I've been involved in pledge drives. So it's not unusual that at $195,000 for this pledge drive with 119 households involved so far, we're slightly short of our goal. And what's different this time is that the average giving per pledging household is outstanding. It's over $1,600 per pledging household, which is kind of a New World's record for Fuse. But one of the interesting features is from 119 households, which is much shorter than the recent history, where we had between 140 to 145 pledging households contributing at various points during the last 3 years. So it's not the level of giving for those of you that are here today that have pledged so much as a level of giving for those of us who come or occasionally come who haven't yet pledged, and that's something one reason why we're going to keep the pledge drive open to collect another 10, 15, 18, 20 pledging households contributing whatever they can towards closing what at this point is about a $20,000 gap in our budget year coming up. But that's looking backwards in time, and that's something that treasurers and finance committees do. We always compare ourselves with what happened before. I think the reason I'm here today is to talk about looking forwards and talking to you about why would you want to commit in the annual pledge drive. And the annual pledge drive is really one of 5 elements of stewardship. It's the role of the board to think about stewardship and to help guide the society towards that goal. And the 5 elements of stewardship are the annual pledge drive, planned giving or legacy giving to the endowment, our good works, which is an enormous effort, as you just see from the number of volunteers that contribute to Seacoast Family Promise. Good works is an element of stewardship that is extremely important, and this church has that in spades. It's also the concept of joyful receiving, and that's why we want to make sure that we thank everyone that participates either in Good Works or legacy gifting or the annual pledge drive, because it's part of the combination of things as we look forward and into the next generation of the efforts that we're all involved in that keep this society alive and vibrant. And then the last element of stewardship is education. And that's kind of why I'm here, talking about extending the pledge drive, seeking additional pledging households, seeking additional monies to close the gap. It's not uncomfortable for me to talk about money. It's uncomfortable for many people to talk about money. But in the context of stewardship and educating us, it's important to realize where we are and what would we like to do. Looking forward, again, thinking of the pledge drive as a forward-looking stewardship activity. What are we trying to do next year? We're trying to put more money into the operating budget to begin the process of repairing our buildings, more money than we have in the past. And without additional contributions, that money will be reduced, and we're going to have to live with the level of repairing that we've tolerated for the last 10 years that has brought our facility to the state that it is. What are we trying to do next year? Number 2 is we're trying to give our staff the first significant pay raise they've had since 2010. And as a matter of pay equality in this society, I think that that's an important moral effort and contribution that we as a society should be endeavoring to make. Thirdly, we're continuing to face, the cost of our recurring bills. Things like health insurance, as you all know, go up every year. And even though it's not a discretionary item, we have to have an operating budget that covers things that go up every year, like the water and sewer bill, the insurance bill, bills like that. And lastly, it's one of our aspirational goals to contribute more money to the National UU organization. We contribute our entire fair share of dues to the district because we get a fair amount of services from the district. But for the last 8 years, we've been unable to pay our fair share to the National UU organization, and it was one of our aspirations in our target to be able to afford a slightly larger payment to the National UU as part of our moral commitment to Unitarianism. And we need that extra money in order to do that. So in the near term, we're looking at additional monies to close the gap to allow us to do those 4 important things. Beyond that, in the longer term, and I mean the next generation, why do we care about stewardship, annual pledging, legacy gifting, and good works? Well, it contributes to the next generation. We pretty much know numerically that Fuse is never going to be a 300 or 400 member congregation unless all the non-believers come to us, which is something that we should probably aspire to, is attracting atheists, but that's something for Chris and Kendra. But really the stewardship, the reason we're here today is, first of all, we like each other, we're like-minded, we have common goals. Those goals go back 150 years to people like William Ellery Channing and Margaret Fuller, people who are concerned about slavery, people who are concerned about child labor, people who are concerned about inequalities in education and income. And if those people were sitting next to you in the pews today, we would immediately recognize each other as being fellow travelers. And that's the stewardship we're talking about. And pledge drive giving, good works, and legacy gifting are our ways of honoring that commitment to our ancestors and the next generation. So we're really talking about maturational growth, organic growth, incarnational growth of the community when we contribute to the annual pledge drive. So this is where we are, facts and numbers. The pledge drive is still open. We're looking for commitments from pledging households that come on an occasional basis or a regular basis, but haven't contributed so far. And we're also looking for any of you who may have given generously to date, but feel that you have the means to give additionally, to help us close that gap and work forward into our stewardship. Thank you very much.
Story today to share with us, to help us on our journey, to help us consider our truth, our home, our sacred space.
There was a lizard who lived on a rock. He was a very happy lizard living on his rock. All day long, Lizard would sing a song. Zole, 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 rock is my home. Zole, 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 rock is my home. One day, Bear saw him sitting on the rock and heard him singing. She wondered why the lizard was so happy, so she asked him, "Why are you so happy?" Lizard said that he was happy because he was at home and the rock was a great place to live. "Oh," said Bear. She went back to her home and thought, "I wish I knew that song, so I would be as happy as a lizard." The next day, Bear went back to Lizard's rock. She asked Lizard to teach her his song. Lizard said he would be very happy to teach it to her. He sang, "Zole, zole, zole, rock is my home. Zole, 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 rock is my home." That made Bear feel good again. She went home, but on the way, she forgot the song. The next day, she went back to Lizard and asked him if he would teach her the song again. Lizard said he would be very happy to teach the song to her again. He sang, "Zole, zole, zole, rock is my home. Zole, 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 rock is my home." Again Bear went home, and again she forgot the song. So she went back to Lizard one more time. This time Lizard was asleep on his warm rock in the sunshine. What could Bear do? She decided to pick Lizard up and put him in a bag. Then she could take Lizard to her home. After his nap, he could teach Bear his song. On the way, Lizard woke up. He did not know where he was. He knew he wasn't at home on his rock. He was very scared. He didn't know what to do. He decided to sing his song so he wouldn't be so frightened. He sang, "Zole, zole, zole, rock is my home. Zole, 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 rock is my home." When Bear got home, she opened the bag. "Where are we?" asked Lizard. "This is my home," said Bear. "I'm sorry if I scared you when I brought you here." Now Lizard saw that Bear didn't live on a rock. Now he understood why Bear couldn't learn the song. He told Bear that she couldn't learn the song because she didn't live on a rock. Bear was disappointed. "But," Lizard said, "I can make you a song that you can learn and remember." He sang, "Zole, zole, zole, Den is my home. Zole, 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 Den is my home." Bear learned that song very easily, and she was very happy.
Person do, what can one do?
It's your special music.
Sorry about that.
False alarm, the children are not leaving. Actually, but because we had this moment here, I'll just make a quick little announcement that children are leaving right after Joyce and sorrows. I think actually it might say in the program it's right after the meditation, but let's kids scoot out right after joys and sorrows.
So we'll play the song again?
Yeah.
We're lucky this one. Welcome this morning, Lisa Bunker to the piano. She's going to play a cappella, that's the middle movement of the first sonatina.
O Spirit of life, let us resolve to move on with our lives in spite of whatever troubles may befall us. We know that we're imperfect, prone to mistakes, often so concerned about ourselves, we're blind to others. We are prone to sin and, in our best moments, we know it. Let this knowing not fill us with guilt. Let it, rather, help us to be patient and understanding. Let it help us to feel the inner strength, the courage, the resolve to shape our future lives in ways that give the dignity to them and help add dignity to others. We do this in response to the call we feel from Thee, O life, to join with you in the furtherance of creation. Amen.
Although we resolve to continue on in spite of troubles, and although it is more fun to only celebrate our joys, we know that every Sunday with 100 plus of us here, that someone's heart is breaking and someone's heart is quaking with joy. Now I know without Kendra we are often shy about sharing, but we all have joys and sorrows and we all want to share them and receive them from one another. This space is sacred. We hold this space for you, safe and sacred. Please join me down front, as you wish, to share your joys and your sorrows.
Good morning. My name is Lisa. And a year ago I had a completely different life. And then I met someone. I met Dawn. And after that first walk on the beach, I knew I had found the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And my life has changed. I've left behind a job and a home and come to here to live in Exeter. And we took a trip last week to Arizona. And that's where I'm from. I'm from the Southwest. And being back in that landscape again made me feel how much I miss parents who are gone and family that is gone. And I felt a great sadness that I couldn't introduce Dawn to my parents. But I have a great joy that I found her and that I'm not too old for new adventures. Never too old for new adventures. So mingled joy and sorrow, but heavy on the joy side. And I'm also joyful to have found this lovely place. I left behind a congregation in Portland that I loved, but I'm happy to have found this church.
For those of you who are new, you wouldn't know Lynn and Jim Schlau, but they were longtime beloved members of this congregation. It just so happened that last weekend I was in Ithaca and they were too. They moved to Seattle, but we were both tending to our respective mothers, and I got together with them, and they are wonderful. Jim somehow seems to look 10 years younger, and they asked me to tell you how much they think of you and send their greetings.
Jim looks 10 years younger because he's not worrying about the water pipes at Our son Cameron will graduate from UNH this fall, and he just accepted a job offer. Hooray!
My name is Frank. And one of my joys is I now have a T-shirt. Back in around 2000, 2001, my wife and I were going to Christ Church, the Episcopal Church in town. And it was announced that some new program was coming to this area. And two people, the new assistant minister, Caroline Hines, and I, for some reason, were delegated to go over to a meeting at the church, the White Church in Southampton at the big intersection, Northampton, at the intersection of 111, etc. And so we went, and it sounded like a great program, and we listened. And then there was about a year or two hiatus, Patty may well know. In the meantime, Pat Baker, our own Pat Baker, she was organizing and getting this thing underway. And so around 2003 it was underway, and I began volunteering overnight at Christ Church. Through them, then in 2007, I came here, and I continued to do it, and it's just been a wonderful experience.
In silence, we hold the joys and the sorrows, spoken and unspoken, in our hearts. And then we send our young children off. Can one little person do? What can one little person do? What can one little person do to help this world go round? One can help another one, and together we can get the job done. What can one little person do to help this world? We're talking a lot today about our space, personal space. And meditation, your meditation, may be about calming, or it may be about emptying, or it may be about listening. The congregation will now take time to be with each person's meditation. I hope you guys can hear me. This will give me a little space to move about. I told Kendra that it helps with the adrenaline. Namaste. Oh boy. Not only has Reverend Kendra let me do a sermon, she has gone and left me alone. God help us all. You, Me, and Mobius, Part 1. When growing as a parent with a 3- and 5-year-old, you come across moments a couple times each day where you and your child learn something. The learning could be academic, social, something like when you fall, pick yourself up, brush yourself off. Boomba. I've gotten fond of tagging these learning moments with my 5- and 3-year-olds by saying, just part of living and learning, Bubby. You can fill in any term of endearment. Just part of living and learning, honey. This sermon grows from a book called The Hidden Wholeness by Parker J. Palmer. It took me months to work my way through this book. Months. Not because the reading was difficult. It took me months because it is countercultural, and being enculturated, I found myself rejecting, arguing, or otherwise having to process almost every one of his assertions. His assertions are rooted in a Quaker context, that within you lies a complete truth and a perfect truth, a perfect you. So across the next 10 minutes or 15, let's explore some of the conflicts I encountered and hopefully discover a healthy metaphor. First, we'll take a strip of paper. We're not going to tape anything yet. When we come into life, we're kind of like this piece of paper. We're just us. We have freedom of movement, we respond, we react, we send things out into the world, no filters. Somewhere in our childhood, either at home or school or church, we discover that it's not exactly safe to live unfiltered. And that isn't entirely wrong. We begin to see ourselves like our skin, where the outside is out and the inside is in, and we'll police the difference. Growing from that and seeing ourselves as a circle can lend to some healthy thinking. It can. It's where many religious traditions get the sense of centeredness. That there is something good and healthy and special and important right inside you, right in the center of you. And it can do marvelous things for you in the world. But if we hold our circles sideways, we begin to see that it is also like circling the wagons. And this is where some trouble begins, because it's inside in and outside out. And just like our skin keeps the outside out and the inside in, our worldview begins to separate us from what we want to show to the world, our onstage life, and what we know or think we know on the inside. Inside in and outside out. This separation keeps us internally divided and separate from one another as well. It also lends itself to an unhealthy way of helping others. It leaves us invading them or evading them and their problems. In our culture, when we go to help, we go to set someone straight. We go to give them perspective. We diagnose their problem. We question them, we criticize them, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. We are separated inside and out. We're separated from one another. We don't feel we can help, or we feel we have no right to interfere, and so we avoid our problem, or our family and friends' problems, or our community's problems, or we simply avoid them, the people. August Ferdinand Mobius was a German mathematician, and he was born in 1790 and he died in 1868. And he probably did all sorts of wonderful work in his world and his days. But he's most famous for what we're about to do, and this is where you can get a piece of tape. If you separate your circle just a little bit, and just pick one side or the other, and turn it halfway around, and you'll see one side appears to be the inside and one side appears to be the outside. And then tape it. And you, for the first time since 5th grade, have made a Mobius strip. I loved the Mobius strip at the Boston Museum of Science with the train on it. I don't know if it's still on display, but the times I went there, I loved to watch it around and around and around, and it just mystified me as a young person and entertained me as an adult. I invite you to trace your finger along the outside of your strip, and soon you'll notice you change to the inside, what appears to be the inside. Keep tracing, and you come to what appears to be the outside. Apparently the inside. Apparently the outside. Here is the magic of the metaphor. If we make the mental leap to see that we continually co-create our reality, inside and outside, outside and inside, we are creating our reality. So this sermon is actually You, Me, and Mobius, part 1. And part 1 today is to explore the metaphor of the Mobius strip to improve our wholeness and to improve our search for our wholeness. I endeavor to help us toward a calming of our awareness and a healing of our separateness. Unlike the circle, there is a continual interchange with the Mobius strip. And we can practice awareness of the inside being shared outward, and the outside being welcomed, even filtered inside. I assert that this metaphor works for introverts and extroverts. When you are aware of your flow, your style, and you sit comfortably in yourself with your truths, then style doesn't matter. Your way of processing, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, doesn't matter. Kindness does. Wholeness does. Grace does. Good works do. Walk wide aware. So, some of us are invaded and evaded. Some of us have been actively harmed. Some of us have unconsciously co-created in ways that are unhealthy, dangerous, and maybe death-dealing to our relationships, our good works, and even to hope itself. what are some ways to get aware and stay aware? This is kind of a little bit of an aside. There's a group called a Clearness Committee in the Quaker tradition. If we go back to the assumption that your perfect truth is inside you, and we further assume that you need a safe place to hear yourself, then it may be achieved by a group of people willing to ask you open-ended and honest questions. Questions on people who don't invade you and don't evade the fact that you have a question in your life. And then they listen. And then as you speak, hopefully you hear your truth. In Unitarian Universalist circles, these clearness committees are sometimes known as circles of trust. Fuse will be experimenting for the clearness committee with me as the guinea pig. We will be exploring my school choice and my development as a future minister. But you can be your own clearness committee. I remember Kendra's recent sermon where she shared her friend's strategy of asking many people an open-ended question about choosing change and how they had discerned their answers. A kind of clearness committee in reverse. And I thank Bill Downell for that insight. With his Quaker background, he's been communicating with me on and off at coffee hour about clearness committees, and he said, "You know that thing Kendra talked about? That's a clearness committee in reverse." And every person can do that. Either as themselves, they can start asking open-ended questions that don't imply an answer, that don't foist a judgment on themselves or others. Or when they ask questions of people they trust, to be a little more careful about how they ask them. I reassert, when you are aware of your flow and you sit comfortably in yourself, in your truths, then style doesn't matter. Kindness does, wholeness does, grace does, and good works do. I invite you to be aware. I invite you to consciously co-create in ways that are life-giving, life-affirming, and loving. I invite you, over the next month, to play and experiment with this metaphor in your thinking and your living. Be aware of what you are sending out and how you are sending it out, and be aware of what you are allowing in. Be aware even of what you're not allowing in, as you have the final say of yes or no for yourself, and you hold your truth. And you have full rights to protect your personal sacred space. But the reality is, the inside comes out, and the outside comes in. So how do you learn and grow? I invite you to part 2 of this sermon. Some Sunday this May. I invite you to remain a holy and special people that I know you to be. Undivided, whole, living, learning, and evolving. It's just part of living and learning, beloved community. It's just part of living and learning. Family promise. Patty Fruit Waters.
Yes.
I've never known much to need a microphone. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm Hattie Waters. I'm the executive director for Seacoast Family Promise and have had the privilege of doing that for 12 years now.
You cannot hear
You cannot hear me.
in a microphone.
Thank you for raising your hand. I'll talk about you later. Thank you, though, that's good. That's why I asked that question. How many of you are familiar with Seacoast Family Promise, whether you volunteer or not? So quite a few. How many of you know nothing at all about Seacoast Family Promise? Okay, a few. 12 years I have been the executive director of this amazing program. Some of you have probably heard me say I often thought this job would either kill me or keep me young. I'm still contemplating which will happen. But I'm happy to tell you some statistical information that may be helpful to you today. We have done now 204 families. Of those 204 families, 87%, 87, have never returned to homelessness after the program. 87%. We have mothers who are still going to school. We have 9 children that we know of who have gone to college. We now have children who grew up and now have their own children and bring them back to the program to say thank you. Our program, if you have not had the opportunity to volunteer, is life-altering for sure. We help families with children who are experiencing homelessness. Many people have been homeless in this world. I never say if you've been homeless, raise your hand, because oftentimes it's something that people don't want to remember. They don't want to ever go back and live in again. Homelessness right now, and many of you will remember, we didn't want to talk about cancer, the C word. Now we talk about it. We raise money for it, research for it. We wear pink. We run. We hold events. We have conversations now that we never had before, and because of that, many people are alive today. When people are homeless, it's scary. We really don't like it. We don't want to think about the fact that it could be us. It could be you, it could be you, it could be you. We don't want to think about being homeless. But ask yourself, if somebody said to me today, tomorrow morning you no longer live here, what would you take? Answer that question for yourself. What would you take? How many vehicles do you have, and how much can you fit in those vehicles? When Seacoast Family Promise helps families, we help people just like you and just like me, who for whatever reason have encountered a bump in the road. And many, many Middle American families are experiencing that. I haven't been here for a couple of years. We had some other people come and speak, because certainly there's more to Seacoast Family Promise than just me. But the last time I was here, I said that 9 years old was the average age of homelessness. And it still is. 9 years old. Homelessness in the state of New Hampshire overall was reported down. It's wonderful. Veteran homelessness. It's wonderful. We are putting veterans in homes all the time. It's great. Individual homelessness. We are finding more places, more shelter, more resources for those folks. However, family homelessness is up 18% in the state of New Hampshire. Thousands of our children every day, the children that you see when you drop your children and your grandchildren off at school, the children who are sitting in the desks beside your children and your grandchildren don't know where they're going to sleep last night. Probably slept in a place they were unfamiliar with the night before. It sounds grim. On the flip side, of course, which we are learning about today, on the flip side, when we had meditation, I stared out this window. When you look out your left, my right, look at the buds on that tree. That tree encountered winter. The falling off of leaves, a bump in the road. And here we are now in springtime when we get another opportunity to experience the season of refreshment and rebuilding and regrowth. And that's what Seacoast Family Promise does. Seacoast Family Promise takes families who are interviewed. We do not treat people with drugs and alcohol. We're a dry shelter, they call us. We take families in after we evaluate them, look at the obstacles that brought them to homelessness. We have had people with college educations, and a lot of them. We have had people who did not survive the financial end of cancer. We have had people from fires. We have had people who have lost jobs after they worked for 15 or 20 years. We have had people who have made mistakes and bad choices in their lives, for sure. We have had people who think the world owes them a favor, and of course we understand that's not the way the world works. We have had people who are uneducated in financial astuteness, if you will. We live in this world where we swipe that debit and we swipe that debit and we swipe that debit, and God forbid we should ever look at the balance in our checking account. Or save a receipt. Or pay attention and then not understand why. We don't know why we now owe the bank $300. We had money in the bank, but you spent money and never looked at your account. The world is changing. Y'all know that. I'm not young, but I look pretty good, don't I? That's very good. You're going to heaven. But the world is changing, and we all know we're all using, and I'm not even going to talk about credit cards, but debit cards. We don't teach our children anymore how to manage their money. Everybody has to have a 65-inch television. Of course you do, because you're having throngs of people in your house every day, aren't you, who come and watch that? You know, we're buying things. It's the now. It's the immediate gratification. Somewhere along the line, we have to learn, and our families do. What is important? Your children are important. Their education is important. Your dental health is important. Bad gums lead to heart problems. You know, you've read that. You've heard that. You have to pay attention to your diet. You have to exercise. You have to pay attention to your money. You have to live in the real world. And that's what we do. I think that's what we do best. Our families go, as you know, some of you and a few don't, from faith community to faith community for overnight hosting. You are the partner for Christ Church down the street. You are the most important part of Seacoast Family Promise. Because no matter how many places I go and speak, if there was not this wonderful community of faith communities and volunteers who help these families, we wouldn't have a program. So when I say we, I mean all of you. I don't just mean me and a couple of staff people. I mean all of you. All of you contribute to the budding of families, to the renewing of these families. What you give them, a smile, a nod, a hello. The difference between looking at somebody and going, and looking at somebody with welcome and love in your face, that's what makes the change. We do everything in Stratum in our day center structurally that we can do. And it's effective. But having listened to these families for the past 12 years, I can tell you that you are what makes the greatest impact in the change in these families. Helen Krupa, wave your hand, Helen, in case people don't know you. That's in case you want to volunteer. She's who you talk to. Helen, who's been with me for many years, who was Volunteer of the Year for me one year, who is always there, bringing clothing, doing the things that Helen does, and those of you who know Helen know that that's just who Helen is. She started our vegetable garden. Helen showed up one day, and I thought, of course, because I'm so special, that she was coming to see me. And of course she wasn't. She came to get one of our mothers to take her snowshoeing. I'm still hearing about that. And the mother doesn't even live with us anymore. That act of kindness, those little things, that's what you give on your end. And it is so powerful. So powerful. To be able to touch, you know, would you mind? But all right. You know what? No, I don't know you, do I? We haven't met in another life or anything. To be able to reach out and to touch somebody. To be able to just touch somebody. Does that feel good? Feels good, doesn't it? We're afraid to touch people sometimes. And this is hands-on. This is touching. This is holding babies. This is maybe holding someone who had a very bad day and needs to cry. This is standing in a food line with somebody and eating with them and sharing how was your day and how is your life. That, to me, is the real meaning of faith. That's the walking of the walk. That's the giving of yourself. To give somebody hope, to give somebody their life back, to give somebody a smile, a touch, a greeting. Even if you're the person that does the laundry. Is there anybody here who does laundry? For Seacoast Family Promise. Who organizes the meals? Oh, you organize the meals. To know that a child is fed. Hello, come right in. Cece, come here. Look at me, I'm still talking. So Cece got bored and decided not to wait for me. Thank you so much for that. This is the average age of homelessness, right here. Right here. Stand right up here so everybody can see you. And one more, go one more. This is the average age of homelessness in the state of New Hampshire, right here. It's not me, it's not my age, it's not your age. This is it. Up by 18% last year. Thank you. Think about it. So thank you very much, and I know you've listened to a lot of talking today. But thank you so much for what you have done. It has helped me to stay here 12 years. Because I see what all of you are doing for these families. Thank you for everything. And thank you for Give It Away Sunday. We appreciate that. And I know that as we hear everybody talk, you're all doing your own fundraising and pledge efforts, and so thank you very much for that, because you know, we're all in that together, the financial thing. But you have changed lives. Don't ever think for a minute that what you do doesn't make a difference. If I built a playground with all of you, and we could turn around and say, wow, we built that playground. You don't see it with these families. Sometimes you don't know it, because the next rotation they're gone. So I come to try to tell you that you are changing these children for the better, for our state, keeping people in school, having people be more educated. You have changed lives, the likes of which you will never know. So thank you very much for that. And if you are not volunteering for Seacoast Family Promise, and you'd like to go to heaven, but if you would like information, by all means, talk to Helen. We'd love to have you. It's very nice to be back here with all of you again today. What a lovely group. It's nice to look out and see so many familiar faces. Thanks for having me.
We should be aware that we all minister within this community, and as we travel along, it brings us to outside this community, but it's really part of this community. And so I welcome your Give It Away donations to Seacoast Family Promise. Let us all sing together, Morning Has Broken. And yet our wavelength is so low that we never see it. And so we light candles, and we share our light, and we share our wisdom, and we hope to grow in love. And as we all send ourselves out into the world this week, let us bring this light with us. Please join me in our unison benediction. Go in peace, speak truth, give thanks each day, respect the earth and all creatures, for they are alive like you. Care for your body, it is a wondrous gift. Be guided by your faith and not your